audio button.
Here. Joining this evening is Tyler Long from WRA. He's our consultant for the project. And really the main purpose for tonight is to answer any questions that residents have regarding the Park Street Sidewalk Improvements Project. If you're joining on Zoom, which seems like anyone that's participating in this meeting is, we don't have anybody present here in town in council chambers, make sure that you have downloaded the exhibit. It is found in the event for today's date, and you are able to download the exhibit from that link, and that's what we're going to be discussing tonight. And so with that, really we're just here to answer questions that any residents have regarding the project, and I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor to questions. I was going to do that for any questions that were here in person, since it seems like we just have residents participating in Zoom. I'm going to go ahead and open the questions up for that. And Charles, do we have any questions?
Our first question is from Lisa, and she asks, when will the project start?
So the project is about to enter the right-of-way phase. We're going to be submitting plans to VDOT in the next week or two. That is a 90% plan set. Once we submit that, VDOT will review it maybe about a month, month and a half. Once we get those back, we're going to be entering right-of-way phase, which is where we're going to be communicating and reaching out to residents to discuss the compensation associated with the impacts that are on the project. In this project, the impacts are limited. It's just temporary construction easements. So really in about a month to a month and a half, we're going to be reaching out to residents, and we're going to be starting the right-of-way phase. During that time, we're going to be coordinating with residents and discussing compensation to them. So it depends really on how long that takes. At this point, we're eyeing sometime in the late spring for construction to begin. Charles, next question.
This is from Nathan. He asked, will there be improvements to the sidewalk at Air Hill and Park Street Northeast intersection? As he also has a second question, can the power lines be moved underground during construction?
So I'll answer the second question first. Typically with moving power lines from aerial down to underground is a very expensive and costly aspect to a project. So at this point, that's not a part of the project. And then your first question, I believe, and Tyler, if you could help me out with this, he was mentioning this intersection.
Yes, we will be improving the curb ramp on the west side of the intersection, but just the one side of the intersection. And we will not be ripping up any of that concrete apron to install that. We're going to just improve the sidewalk and the curb ramp in that quadrant.
Okay, thank you.
Hi,
Charles,
I don't know. Can you hear me? Am I able
Yes,
to talk?
yes, we can.
Okay, this is Nathan. Are you connecting the crosswalk across Park Street? So if you're the existing sidewalk on Park Street now, that ends there at the kind of the bottom right side of the screen. Will it be connecting? Because right now that sidewalk just ends with nowhere to go.
Are you talking about down over here?
Yeah. So if you see the bottom sidewalk that's on Park Street,
Yep.
It ends right there, with no crosswalk or anything to get to either the other side of Park or to the far corner, diagonal to the other side.
I believe there's an existing curb ramp right here for a crossing, and we're lining up the new curb ramp to be in line with the existing one that's between these two driveways in this area.
So there is a curb, but there's no crosswalk or anything to safely get across there during like rush hour times or anything like that.
Yeah, there aren't any marked crosswalks. That would be something that the town could look into.
Yeah, that's absolutely something the town has added to even something that's not even a project. So that's something we can definitely look into adding as this project goes under construction. We'll look into adding a crosswalk and the markings associated with that.
Okay. Yeah, that intersection is pretty difficult for pedestrians during busy times and during Vienna events. So.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'm glad you let me know. we'll definitely look into that. I'll put that on my list to look into adding those pavement markings to this.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mhm.
Charles, was there any other questions?
Not at the moment.
Okay. We'll be here for a while. I just want to have residents have some time to take a look at the exhibit. And once, I think I'll check back in maybe in 5 or 10 minutes just to see if there's any additional questions.
Could you remind everyone where they can find the packet of information?
Well, so there's 2 places. First is the event for the calendar event for this meeting. And the other place is we've got this exhibit located on the project website. We are going to go through and update the project website, the project webpage for this. I know that the dates that are on there are a bit old and outdated. We're going to update that, especially after we get our review comments back from VDOT and we have a better idea of what the schedule is going to look like. So please take some time to take a look at the exhibit and let us know if you have any questions.
Lisa says, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Gentlemen, could you explain the graphic that is on screen and its previous graphic and the difference therein?
Tyler?
Sure. So the graphic that's currently on the screen shows the sidewalk that is what we call curb abutted, I believe. And it means it's right up behind the sidewalk, or right behind the curb. And it's the reason we're showing that particular typical section is because in an area we're trying to reduce the impacts to the adjacent properties and avoid relocating some of the existing power poles.
And the other one?
And the other one is basically the same thing, except you have a grass buffer strip in between the sidewalk and the curb and gutter. In the area of this this sidewalk location, the impacts to the residential properties are pretty minimal. So we were able to get the buffer strip, which is typically required to provide a safe lateral offset for the sidewalk.
We have a question. What is the need for a new sidewalk with just one across the street?
So this project actually started as a drainage need, and we were trying to figure out a way to pay for the project. And we found that if we add a sidewalk to it, we could apply for this special grant that VDOT has utilizing federal funds called Transportation Alternatives Program Grant, which we were awarded. And so by adding a sidewalk to the drainage aspect of this project, we were able to get the project funded. I know is kind of adding something, makes it so it gets funded, so it's an interesting aspect. But we were able to get this project funded, adding in the sidewalk. Good question.
Next question is, how many trees will have to come down?
Well, at the moment, we are showing approximately 6 to 7 trees that could be impacted, with a couple more that are on the edge of the limits of construction. Of course, we are trying to, by using that curb abutted sidewalk, we're trying to reduce how much we impact. So we're looking to see which of those trees, after further design revisions or more detailed design, we can save. What's one of the challenges of this is there's a very steep hill that's right adjacent to the road. And so when you build a sidewalk that cuts into that hill, we have to properly grade that hill back, and some of that could hit the existing routes. So what we're showing on the display right now is, I would say, a conservative estimation, but with refining some of the design, I think we can look to keep the minimal tree impact to probably about 6 or 7 trees.
Thank you.
There's another question. Is it possible that we will have sidewalk construction at the same time as the new Cubesmart is being put on Mill Street?
That's a great question. I'll have to confirm exactly when that project is going to start. So who is asking that question?
This is for Michael Cooney. I hope I said your name right.
Okay. So my email should be a part of either the project website, or else it's also on the calendar event. Send me an email if you wouldn't mind, just saying, hey, refresh, or just a reminder of the question about the construction times versus the other developments being constructed. I'll get back to you. But yeah, that's a good question. Thank you. Oh, do we have a question? You can see my email is up there. So if you have any additional questions after this meeting, please feel free to email me, and I will get back to you as soon as I can.
Lisa would like to ask you a question, so she is coming off mute.
Okay.
Oh, hi. This is Lisa Cooney. I live across the street from Air Hill, right at the base
Okay.
of Air Hill. It looks like when I went out there and walked this, that the trees that are going to be affected are all the ones along that house on the corner. Is that right?
Yeah, so currently 3 trees are showing being impacted on that site, on that property. But I know one of them we may possibly be able to save once we refine the design. But at this point, we're showing 3 impacts.
Are those on Air Hill or Park Street or both?
That's, well, one of them is kind of right in the middle of the 2, and the other 2 would be technically along Park Street.
Okay.
Let's see. We have, at what point will you know the impact of the trees due to grading, et cetera? At the time of construction, or is it, or at some earlier final design phase?
It'll be at an earlier design phase. So we're approaching 90% now. After VDOT goes through and does another review, we'll be able to finalize the design. At that point, we'll be able to know really the exact impacts of the trees. Is that correct, Tyler?
That's correct. And I would imagine that when the town is going out to discuss the temporary easements,
Yep.
that we will know the extent of the impacts to each of the properties, so that that can be brought up during the negotiations of the easement.
Yep, that's correct. So trees can be something that we discuss when we end up coming to each resident to discuss the right-of-way impacts after we get this submission into VDOT and have their review and get their comments. We're going to then at that point reach out to residents individually, and that's when we can have a detailed conversation about the tree impacts. So that should be in about maybe 1.5, 2 months, 2.5 months at the most. It just depends on how long VDOT takes for their review.
There's a follow-up question. It sounds like there would be time to discuss mailbox impacts as also, correct?
Yes, so we can discuss mailbox impacts when we have that conversation one-on-one with residents during that right-of-way phase. So yes, that is a good question. We will be able to discuss that at that point as well.
This is from Michael. Has there been any analysis as to what the effects might have on parking during Viva Vienna?
I don't think that we've directly looked into that, but this design does not allow parking along the roadway there. No, we have not directly looked at that at this point, but that's something that I could look into and just understand how many people usually park there during the event, and I can get back to you. So if you could send me an email just reminding me of that question, I could get back to you. Thank you.
Did you say that it does or does not allow for parking?
So along with the addition of the curb, and we need to add the curb for a drainage aspect, would be no street parking along that side of the street.
Michael would like to speak with you.
Sure,
He's unmuting.
sure.
Yeah, this is Mike Cooney. I got everything here in the comments on the side. I don't need to take anyway. I think Nathan wanted to speak.
Hi. Yeah. So this is Nathan Giesman again. So on the no parking on that side of Park Street, is it going to be official with signs that there's no parking allowed on that side of the street?
We typically don't sign that, but that's something I could look into. With the way the road is laid out, it'll show just the single lane there, and so I'll look into if we're going to need to add no parking along there. But with the addition,
there's quite a few cars that park along the street right now, and I imagine there's going to be a lot of people who are going to want to know, need to know that are likely not aware that that's going to be an issue.
Okay, no, that's a good point. We'll make sure that all the residents along there are aware that with the addition of this project and the curb for the drainage aspects.
Is there any way for it to be parking? Because
I think with the widths that are associated with the project, or the final widths with the project, that's not a possibility, Tyler? Is there
it would push the sidewalk into the adjacent properties, and so we'd have to take right away, and it would also significantly impact the front yards. So almost all of the front yards and all of the driveways would have to be basically reconstructed and regraded. It'd be a pretty significant impact.
Yeah, well, not allowing parking is a pretty significant impact as well. So.
Understand.
Okay, yeah, no, understood. I'll make sure that that's clearly displayed for the residents, and so that there's no parking there along there, especially after the project is in place.
So if the residents now decide that that is not an appropriate plan, is there ability for us to discuss further if we don't agree with the no parking?
I mean, there's always the ability to discuss. I don't know at this point what that would mean for the project. I'd have to go above me to confirm that. But yeah, if anyone wants to discuss that, please reach out to me and I can have that conversation.
And do you know if the no parking was raised when this was originally brought to the table for discussion?
I'm not personally aware of that. I'd have to talk with the project manager that was managing this before I came to the town. I came to the town about a year ago. So I'd have to confirm with them to see if that was discussed with the residents that are impacted by the project. But I can get back to those residents to let them know if that was a part of that conversation.
Yeah, I'm just looking out right now. I see there's 4 cars parked on the street right now. So just no, at least that I can count from my front porch. So.
Sure. Glad we have somebody that's right there on the project site. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So we're coming up at a little bit past 7:30. I don't know if there was maybe someone else that had a question that they were thinking about, so I'll wait a few more minutes just in case. But as I mentioned a couple of times, our next steps are to submit plans to VDOT within a week or two or so, which are going to be the right-of-way plan sets, the 90% plan sets. Once they review that and get back to us, we'll be able to start the negotiations with town, the residents that are impacted by this project. So look for us to be reaching out to you maybe in a month and a half, 2 months from now, just to get the project continuing to move forward. I do apologize for various delays that have been a part of this project. The virus situation is one aspect, but the other aspect is that there's federal funds tied to this project. So there's certain checkbox that we have to mark, certain hoops we have to jump through. And so we're getting near the end, we're getting there closer. So I do thank you for bearing with us. And yeah, thank you for joining us. It's just great that we were able to have this meeting through Zoom and proceed on with the project. So thank you very much. I'll wait maybe 2 or 3 more minutes just in case there's an additional question. And if you have any questions after this meeting, please reach out through my email. Any more questions, Charles? No? Okay. Well, we're coming up on 7:35. I want to thank you all for joining us. I really appreciate the interest in the project. And if there's any more additional questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm usually pretty quick with my emails, and I'll give you a call. I don't mind talking on the phone. And I know that there's some questions that I need to answer still based on some of the ones that we've heard this evening. So I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And I want to thank all of you for joining us this evening. Stay safe and have a good evening. Thank you very much.